Hi. So today we are going to be looking at day 12 of the Australian Advent Calendar, which featured a distillery from Australia called the Karu Distillery. Now, when you hear about the Karu, the first thing you're going to think about is probably the Great Karu of South Africa, or even the Maori word for eye, but it's neither of those things. In point of fact, it comes from the word bear in Estonian, which one of the founders, Ali Ayres, and her husband Nick, she comes from, or her ancestry is Estonian. That's where they picked it because they happen to like it very much. Now, the company was founded around 2017, but actually it predates that because they, of course, like most people, they had to do research and check things out for the last 3 years before that, pick up the equipment, get financing, figure out the distribution avenues and everything else. And they didn't actually get started until 2017. And of course, the first thing they did was go into gins because of the 2 year rule of Australian regulations that say you can't call it a rum until it's been aged for 2 years. They couldn't make money off of that, so off they went with gins, and they created two gins in point of fact, which won a lot of prizes. One of them was, I think, 57%, which kind of like, opened up a lot of people's eyes as to what gins could be. And then they went to a masterclass somewhere around 2018 or 2019, and got the rum bug because, of course, it had to be Richard Seal who was running the show. And he kind of explained to them how things were done and how rum was made and how it was this versatile spirit, and they got the bug and they started to experiment with it. This was mostly Ali, I think. So they experimented and they put together some rum, a wash in from, that they had molasses coming from New South Wales, which is where they are, and they put together a bunch of fermentation tanks out of old pickle and olive barrels that they had lying around or that they managed to source, and they ran it through a 600-liter pot still that they called Calcifer, which I think is just so cool a name because, channeling Miyazaki and all that, and I'm a great Miyazaki fan. And they issued batch one somewhere around 2023, I guess, in time for the calendar, right? They're up to about batch 6 or 7 now, and it's only like not even halfway through 2024, so they're really moving very quickly. The important thing about it, though, is the fermentation period, because that fermentation period is 4 weeks in the winter, 2 weeks in the summer, and then they run it through a pot still. So you'd expect that this thing is going to have esters squirting out of every pore, and to some extent, it really does. Not as much as you think, though. It's actually quite restrained for itself. Now, it's at 46%, so that's not actually going to do anything really serious or rearrange your insides in any sort of way. It's very approachable and it's very drinkable. Dangerously so, I would suggest. Now, they do mature this for about 3 years in ex-Australian whiskey barrels, which is different from the ex-bourbon that we're all more familiar with. It does make for an interesting series of tastes, though, and I quite liked it. Beginning, it's kind of on the nose, it's kind of simple. It's got most of the barrel forward stuff. You got your vanillas, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of leather, a little bit of smoke. You've got some fruits, soft ones. Bananas in particular come to mind. Also, there are some sharper citrus and pineapple notes, which is the esters coming out to play and seeing what they could do. And it really is quite light and quite pleasant, and yet it has that slightly deeper musky note that is really quite pleasant. Once you get into the taste of it, it also is very good in the sense that a lot of the things that you smelled are kind of come back at you again in new and interesting ways. Now, you get the same cinnamon, spices, caramel, toffee, brown sugar. All the traditional hits are being played here. And then you go off and do your own little jazz melody with the improv, and you've got a little bit of fruits and cashews, salt cashews, the ones with the seeds outside, which kind of burn your lips if you're not careful. It's got a slightly tequila note to it, which is not entirely all that, but it's there and it has to be acknowledged, and some people will like it and some people don't. But it really comes together in an interesting way. It doesn't entirely succeed, though. I scored it 83 points when I put the review out last night, and I thought that was reasonable for what it was. It might go a point higher or a point lower depending on what your personal preferences are. The important thing to understand, though, that it is a tasty little drink. Some of the parts don't play really well together, and the youth is actually quite self-evident. You can't completely disguise that and pretend that you've got a NAS rum here that's simply a blend and, oh, well, it's great. No, no. It does have its weak points at time, but overall it succeeds in spite of that. And what I tend to think is that it's going to get better over time. I mean, if they're already on batch 7, certainly whatever they're doing is selling out really quickly. And although we in the West probably won't get to see it unless the export rules change or some far-sighted distributor takes it in hand to kind of like introduce the rest of the world to it, and I think hopefully one day somebody will, I think it's worth a drink. Even if you're an Australian, you can pick up one of the releases. Go get it. I think it's really worth it. To be honest with you, I didn't check the price. Sorry about that. I tend to take things as they come, and if I really like it, I'm going to go out and buy a bottle irrespective, and I'm not going to wait for a damn sale. But overall, I think this is worth your time if you're going to take a look at it. It's 4 to 6%. It's not going to do anything really bad to you, and it really is a nice little sipper. I suppose you could mix it in something, but you don't really need to. It's perfectly serviceable. It's on its own. So I hope that they continue making stuff like this, because I think this is stuff we should be paying attention to, and I hope I've made the case why. So that's it for today, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.